who evade tax payment for many reasons, some of them unfortunately, including the impunity whereby they are aided by unscrupulous people at the Kenya Revenue Authority. Finally, the long and short, Minister, of all the issues spoken to by Senator for Migori and the chair is that the non-discretionary obligations to the county governments have been occasioned by a change of policy in government. It is government's policy on housing, community health workers, the CBA they signed with doctors, on NSS. So are you telling us that you want to advise that the government then reverses its decision so that we give county governments less money, they don't have that obligation, so that we say, okay, fine, these policies were well intended until the bill was withdrawn, but now that the finance bill was withdrawn, now that that's where we are, we want to rethink the policies. Then finally, and I'm glad you just the other day you are representing the people of Suba. Why is it so easy to make a decision to slash funds for county governments, and you find it difficult to tell members of the National Assembly to equally slash CDF? Why? Isn't this legislative impunity, whereby we are saying, because we are legislators, we will protect that which is seen to be ours, and let that which is borne by governors to suffer the consequences of the hard decision? Finally, but not least, Minister, this is not part of this. I would love to hear what you have to say about what the courts have already said about CDF. CDF is 68 billion this year. The shortfall now, brought in because of these policy changes, is 61.2 billion, just matching. It means, therefore, if you agreed with the court's decision that CDF was unconstitutional, it means that you would be having the money to give the county government. So, as our new CS for finance, do you want to agree with the courts that CDF is unconstitutional, or do you still want to perpetuate that illegality? Of course, you are there, and with good reasons. When that decision was made, you tweaked the law and managed to survive. But do we want to continue that way? Thank you very much, Mr. CS.
Chair or Madam Vice Chair, this is Honorable Onyonka. I would like to give my question.
Proceed, Senator Onyonka.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. CS, I hope you're listening to me.
Yes, he is.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I was not able to come, but I think I can still raise. I have two questions to ask. Number one, my interpretation of the law is that the time when we sat down and made a decision to increase the revenue that we are supposed to give to the county governments, we can not reverse ourselves, whichever argument the CS wants to make. The reason for that is very simple. Honorable Khalwale has just said it. CS, I would like to beg you, my brother, because you understand the rules. I know how government fears members of parliament, because if their CDF is touched, they even start talking about impeachment. That money must be removed and taken where it is being ring-fenced to help the county governments. And our position is very simple. Please don't touch the money. We want to give our county governments 400 billion. We have enough money, and whatever that you are cutting, cut everywhere else and leave the counties. Why? The amount of money that the county governments are getting is 15%. The national government is less than 85. So go take your 85 and take it out from there. Leave the counties alone. I would like to say, Madam Chair and the Chair, that I will vote against this bill, whatever you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Onyonka. Chair, Honorable Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Allow me to first congratulate the CS for his new appointment and also for sharing what he largely shared on behalf of the national government without much consideration to county governments. And over and above what has been shared by the honorable senators that are members of the committee, I would like the CS to really internalize what the committee members have shared with him, so that that reality informs, the advice or the position as the Treasury representing both levels of government should be taking. The issue of non-discretionary expenditure shared by the team amounts to 39.985, which is 100% outside the control of the county government. These are expenditures and costs that has come in after DORA was passed, the previous DORA of 2023-2024, and legislations that are passed by Parliament have necessitated that, as well as national government priority programs that was brought to county governments to adopt. The issues of housing levy deduction, 4.05 billion. Enhanced contribution to NSSF by law, 3.0 billion. Matching allocation to CAIPs for the 50% they are supposed to pay, 11.75 billion. Matching allocation to community health promoters, which is 50-50 between the two levels of government, 3.23 billion. Cost of maintenance and servicing of medical equipment, MES, which are in terrible shape right now because of excessive use, 5.86 billion. Annual wage increment in the IPPD system that does not negotiate with anyone, it comes to 6.95 billion. Dr. CPA, that was the national government has met the obligation, the county last year, the county government are picking the bill, 5.8 billion. This totals to 39.985 billion. And this does not include 5.5 inflationary cost provision that ought to have been included, which comes to almost 21 billion that we haven't even discussed. Now, Honorable CS, I want to refer to a few facts. One, the Finance Acts of 2023-2024 is the one at play that gave county governments 385.425 billion last financial year. Now, to suggest anything less than what would be allocated to county governments is as, absurd as an employee salary being reduced because counties will base their planning on the foreseeable, predictable, stable inflow of funds. Now, how they go back to reduce the expenditure from 385.425 will be a very difficult issue to even try and internalize. The other issue I want to say is that you have presented and you said we are allocating over 24%. However, you are basing that 24% on the last audited and approved account. But if it is on the basis of projected revenues, you are allocating less than 15%, even it's 14.9% as required in law. There is no reason, Honorable CS, there is no reason more justified for the national government to borrow than support devolution in 47 counties where health services are provided, water service provision is done, issues of primary health care is primary education, lower primary education, ECD program is run. When you look at such expenditures, Honorable CS, and national government has borrowed over the years for flimsy reasons, to be very honest. When you look at supporting devolution in 47 county governments by borrowing 20 billion to be able to provide these services as required, is going to be the most justifiable reason for the government to take. Now, since county governments don't sit and there's no mouth talking for them, and the National Assembly unfortunately takes the path of where do we sign when an issue proposal comes from National Treasury or the government for that matter, then the reality of reasoning is left to the Senate to be able to rationalize. Because Senator Khalwale asked you, this and discretionary expenditure, they came into play within the previous financial year after the law was passed. It is an issue that can't be ignored. The question I want to pose is, how do you expect the county government to deal with these expenditures that have come into effect after the last law was passed? Over to you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Chair. I think because of time, I will just allow you to add up.
Yeah, just a very serious follow-up because I don't like any misrepresentation, Honorable CS, that might look disingenuous, and especially because I'm seeing my brother Albert here, who have been in this community for the last 2.5 years, as well as my brother Guyo here. Honorable CS, I don't know whether you got a brief that the equalization fund has always been in arrears for perpetuity, to the extent that it appears disingenuous if you are going to indicate in this conversation about equitable share that you are going to put 8 billion in equalization fund, and therefore it shows some kind of courteous increment in county government equitable share, when actually, first of all, that fund itself has been in arrears for perpetuity. And we've had a lot of conversation here with the previous years, and with my brother Guyo here, and as well as my brother Albert. And in the same spirit of what the chair has said, when you're just looking at how the data is being compounded, the idea of basing on the previous approved revenue as well as this equalization fund, I think those two computations must be ignored in this conversation, so I can have a genuine conversation to be able to help counties run.
Thank you so much. I think to be specific with what Senator Eddy is talking about.
Sorry, Madam Vice Chair, there is some issue, just what Senator Eddy has raised, I needed to bring to the attention of the CS. Honorable CS, there is an illegality happening within Treasury. The requirement of equalization fund, once appropriated, is supposed to be credited to equalization fund account. The previous equalization fund as appropriated is yet to be credited to equalization fund account, which is grave illegality, and that has been happening over the years. How do you intend to remedy the equalization fund appropriation act that is approved and ascended to, which is law, where National Treasury we are into a new financial year and nothing has been credited to equalization fund account yet? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I like it because, Chair, if you look at the screen in your presentation, as far as equalization fund is concerned, you talk about arrears of 147 million. Would you tell this committee where you get the figure of 147 million? Because as far as you're concerned, the arrears are 52 billion. This committee has been singing the song of equalization fund. As a vice chair, I've been on the floor of the house tabling the figures for equalization fund. It's a song that we keep on singing and trying to show that more monies are being added to the counties, and that's not the case. As Senator Eddy has put it, it's been 14 years. The duration was 20 years. It's 6 years down the line. Albert, we've been having this conversation. CEO Guyo, we've been having this conversation. Why are we lying to Kenyans about this money? Is called equalization fund. Where does this money go? Bwana CS, I want to give you the floor. I want you to know the words that members have used. Internalize the discussion, the concerns that members have been raised. Back to you, Waziri.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, once more, I want to agree with you that leaders have been changing positions. You become a senator, sometimes you're a governor, member of the National Assembly, in the executive, like I found myself. Tomorrow I may be a governor, I may come back to Parliament. And I think what should guide us is not where we are. What should guide us is the Constitution and the interests of the people. So if we are guided with that, then it doesn't matter where we find ourselves. Now, to address the questions, starting with the one that you raised, whether, and you have rightly pointed out that your initial figure was 450 billion. The negotiation brought it down to 400 billion. And then you clearly talked about some expenditures that are non-discretionary also at the counties. And I want to make it clear that I'm not saying that non-discretionary expenditures are only at the national government. Even at the counties, there are non-discretionary expenditures, and I agree with you. Payment of salaries are non-discretionary unless you retrench. There are payments to doctors, there are CBS, which had been agreed on. But what I'm saying...
Please pull the mic closer to you, please.
What I'm saying, the point I'm trying to bring out is that at both levels, we have non-discretionary expenditures, national and county. What we may need to do is both levels again should cut on discretionary expenditures. And so as national government, and that is why the national government is bearing the biggest share, actually 93%, 0.6, and the counties is bearing 6.3%. We are alive to the fact that counties don't have the capacity or resilience that the national government would have to absorb some of these cuts. And that is why you find that our proposal is to have a lesser cut at the counties and a higher cut at the national government. So just the same way we went for some of the expenditures of the national government to be cut at 50%, like austerity, like traveling, etc. You'll also agree with me, Madam Chair, that counties are also traveling, that there are also recurrent expenditures of austerity at the counties. How I wish that we agree that counties must also, as we cut these expenditures at the national government level, then we also maintain and retain, and the county assemblies should do that, that all the non-discretionary expenditures must still be maintained, because you can't change them, but go for the wastages also at the county in terms of certain budget lines that can be cut. Because we live in this country, we see members of county assembly all over the place, also the same as members of national assembly and in the Senate. We also see county executives traveling across the globe the same way as executive. So as we reign on the executive of the national government to cut on these discretionary expenditures, our proposal as Treasury is that the counties must also be asked to cut on these expenditures. On the delay of disbursement of funds, again, I want to agree with you and say that this is causing a strain on the county governments. They go borrowing very expensive bank loans, and I am not supporting that trajectory. The current predicament, or what we have found ourselves into, maybe it is not the subject of discussion today, but we are alive to it, is that we are not yet done with the legal framework, the legal framework, to be able to transfer funds to the county. I'll tell you, and I tell this committee, that I have already written, because I initially had a clear mind based on the provisions of the PFM regulations, that we could pay up to 50%. But then there is another school of thought that that cannot happen, and that I had to ask for Attorney General's opinion, which later went to the Attorney General on Wednesday last week. It doesn't help Treasury to accumulate and disburse funds to the counties. It puts unnecessary pressure and strain on us. So I want to just be very clear that it is not in the interest of the National Treasury not to disburse funds to the county, or at least as far as I'm concerned. Now, the issues that Honorable Senator Eddy raised. Yes, counties don't have as much flexibility as national government in terms of raising revenue. And I think that is one of the reasons why we made provisions in law that money that has already been shared to the counties should not be reduced in terms of transfer in the event that there is a shortfall in revenue collection. But again, Article 219, my understanding of Article 219, it deals with the transfer of funds. It doesn't deal with the legislation. It doesn't deal with the bills. What this article simply says is that once a budget is passed, once the Division of Revenue Act is passed, the national government must transfer all the shareable revenue to the county. That the same legislative organ cannot change. To me, I have not seen in this constitution, and I have interacted with this constitution a lot. I do know that you cannot take away the legislative of parliament. Parliament can decide to amend. And by the way, I want to be very clear here. The 400 billion was based on a projected revenue of 2.9 trillion. The revenue now is 2.6 trillion. So you cannot base the shareable revenue of the county to 2.9 trillion when you are dealing with 2.6 trillion. And therefore the House can decide on its wisdom, both houses can decide either to agree to amend downwards the Division of Revenue Act, or the two houses can reject, in which case then 400 billion will be the amount. But the moment Senate and National Assembly amends the shareable revenue, it becomes a law. So that Article 219 would not be violated. That article would only be violated if National Treasury fails to transfer the money that Parliament in its entirety, the two houses, have approved. And I think Honorable Eddy also raised the same issue, that of the non-discretionary lines in the county expenditures, and I think I addressed that. Honorable, the majority in the Senate, my friend Boni Khalwale, you have a decision, and that we don't have power, which is true, to amend, and that the courts will declare whatever we come up with as illegal and maybe unconstitutional. Yes, it is true that when the President declined to assent to the Finance Bill of 2024, he indicated under bullet number 5, I don't think you have this memorandum from the President. Although the President is also part of the legislative process, we, in our own wisdom, we made the President part of our legislative process, including on budget matters. But the President said, this is what he said, that Father, I have directed the National Treasury, and I underline the word direct, and I'm asking, who is he directing? He is actually directing the National Treasury, because I would have had a problem if he directed the National Assembly of the Senate, Parliament. But directing National Treasury is perfectly within his powers as the President to immediately submit to Parliament. And the direction or the directive was to submit to Parliament amendments to the Division of Revenue Act 2024. And that is exactly what we have done. Any shareable revenue to counties, what we have done is to submit a power to do so, and that organ is Parliament revenue to reflect the reduced revenues occasioned by the rejected finance bill. So the President was actually directing my office to submit to Parliament legislative proposal to amend the law. And that is what we have done. So I don't think we have done anything illegal and unconstitutional to that effect. Parliament has all the powers to deal with this matter. The Honorable Boni, Senator Boni, you have talked about my pet. as your number 2 issue, and that is the revenue leakages. As a matter of fact, we would not be here today if we mainstreamed in our financial system. I can't agree with you more. It is not just about the revenue collection, it's even the revenue use, and at both levels of government, national and county. And I'm addressing Senator Boni Khalwale, whom I know very well.